Now, the Evora has always been this sort of very intriguing car for me. It's a car that I've known has been on sale, and it has sort of the right formula. It's mid-engined, it's lightweight, you can get it with a manual. It has all the right ingredients to make a fantastic sports car, but for some reason, it seems the market in general doesn't pay it too much attention. So when I got this 2021 Lotus Evora GT for the last week or so, that's kind of been the question I've been wanting to find out. Why? This car, on paper at least, there should be no reason why people are overlooking this car, and after a week with it, I don't really understand why either. So let's get the sort of basic stats out of the way. This is a 2021 Lotus Evora GT. It's the last hurrah of the Evora in the United States before it gets replaced next year. And as far as last hurrahs go, this is a really good one. Now, this particular car that I'm driving, as you probably can tell from some of the footage, and I'm gonna just go ahead and apologize right now, it's very, very foggy out today, and so I'm not really gonna be driving this car too fast because it's on Michelin Cup 2s, and it's cold, and it's raining, which is sort of a recipe for disaster. This is no normal, let's say, Evora GT, because this one has the $10,000 carbon pack. Now, the carbon pack gets you a carbon fiber roof. You have the rear hatch is made fully out of carbon, and the rear bumper is made out of carbon. You have carbon in the front. This car is pretty much loaded with carbon fiber, which does help with weight savings. I think it saves in total about 70 pounds, more or less. But again, it's sort of to make the car light, and I understand that helps with performance, but frankly, I think the carbon fiber just looks really, really cool. As you can tell, I am choosing my own gears because this Evora is a manual. A very, very welcomed sight in a segment that has all but abandoned the manual transmission. Now, this manual transmission is linked to a 3.5 liter supercharged V6 engine producing 416 horsepower. And in this configuration, in this car, 416 feels more than enough. It's more than enough to get into trouble. I could argue that it doesn't feel as quick as a GT4, especially a GT4 with the PDK. However, you can get this with an automatic, but it's not sophisticated as a unit as a PDK. So if I'm looking at Evora, I'm looking at the manual. And in terms of manual transmission, it's a pretty solid one. Honestly, it's very user-friendly. It's not really intimidating to drive the Evora fast, obviously when it's not incredibly foggy. But again, the Evora is not a very intimidating car at all. There isn't too much adjustability, actually. You don't have adaptive dampers. Basically, from what I read, the story on that is Lotus sets up the car properly from factory, and they kind of don't want you messing around with that. And I kind of agree with them, because I've been driving this car throughout the canyons all week long, granted when it was dry, but this car is really, really well balanced. It's really agile. Like the front end of this car, you can kind of point and make really, really quick adjustments to get into corners, and it just grips. It's very balanced. And I really, really like, I'm actually kind of mad that I didn't pay the Evora enough attention up until now, up until its sort of departure from the US market, but I'm so glad that I'm driving it now. Really balanced car. It's very, very easy to drive it quickly. And again, it's just sort of not intimidating. So, and the gear shifts are really easy. And you know, we'll talk about how it is around town a little bit later, but up here, I'm kind of glad that I don't have settings to fiddle with, because in a canyon road that's kind of tight with a couple of straightaways, that sort of thing, this car is pretty much what you need. Let's talk price, because this tester comes in at $116,000, and that's a lot of money. That's Cayman GT4 money. That's not cheap, but I think for what you're getting, mid-engine, very supercar feel, I will say, to me, this really has like that sort of supercar vibe. I don't know if this technically qualifies as a supercar. Is this a super sports car? Whatever like its actual segment is. But to me, this car gives me supercar vibes. It really does. It's low to the ground, and I think that's the difference that I think would edge this out over the GT4, is that the GT4, as fantastic as that is to drive, and the engine, and even in a manual, I will say that it doesn't give me supercar, it doesn't feel like a supercar to me. Whereas having this being low to the, even lower to the ground, the Lotus just kind of looks more supercar to me. And you know, maybe that's subjective, but to me, I really enjoy the way the Lotus looks. But the one thing to keep in mind is that that price point is going almost exclusively to the way the car looks, the way the car drives, because the interior is probably the only spot of this car that I don't absolutely love. And it has to do with material choices, it has to do with build quality. I think the screen itself, this is just an Alpine infotainment screen. It's not, you know, it doesn't even feel like it's really integrated all that well. It's kind of just like tacked on there. It does have Apple CarPlay, you have navigation, satellite radio, all that, you know, things that are kind of a given, especially at this price point. But the execution of it really isn't my favorite. But again, if you can live with those drawbacks, the way this car drives really is impressive. I even like the sort of two big analog instruments right in front of me, sort of very reminiscent of older Lotus models. I think it looks fine. At no point have I said, oh, I need a digital dash, I need a whatever, because I don't really care that much about the interior in this car. Again, it's all about the driving experience. But I will say, back to that driving experience, I feel as though this car, you really need a nice road to enjoy it. You really need to have access to somewhere where you can get into the twisties with this car to really enjoy and sort of understand what the Evora is all about. I think there's also something to be said to the fact that this isn't just your regular, you know, Porsche, BMW, or anything of the sort of like the usual suspects. This is something a little bit unique, and I honestly, like the whole last week that I've been driving this car, it really catches people's eye in a way that a lot of other six-figure sports cars don't. I think it has that distinctive look, and kind of what I was mentioning earlier, it has that sort of supercar vibe that I think really helps the Evora stand out. Now, this color is actually called Daytona Blue. It's almost $5,000, but I think it's so worth it. It really does shine. Even on this horrible foggy day, this car looks spectacular. Now I'm getting a little bit more comfortable in the rain. We can pick up the pace a little bit, but really easy to drive, especially quickly. Downshift, there is no auto rev match, but again, you kind of don't need it. This engine, really happy to rev, so it really doesn't have a problem getting up there. And frankly, I really wish we could drive it at the limit, let's say, or at least at a much faster pace, but that doesn't seem very responsible. Now let's talk tires, wheels, and brakes, because again, that's really where your money's going. So this car gets 19-inch wheels in the front, 20-inch wheels in the rear, and this one has AP Racing brakes, which are fantastic. They are very effective, and honestly, I've been driving up and down these canyons when it was dry very quickly, and at no point did I feel that the brakes were fading or under stressed or anything like that. They're really properly matched for the car. And as I've mentioned, you know, this car does have the Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2 tires. Again, a very racy tire. They're not going to last a long time. They wear out pretty quickly, but in the dry, they are pretty grippy, and I think they match the sort of overall vibe of the car, because it isn't a car you're gonna daily drive. That's kind of my time with the Evora. It's just realizing that this is a really solid formula that to me is criminally underrated. I feel like not enough people are giving the Evora a look, and I think that's a shame, because this is a fantastic car. And now, honestly, other than just the fact that this car has managed to impress me as much as it has, I'm really excited for the next generation of Lotus's main sports car in the US. Obviously, they only sell one model in the US. The Elise and, you know, are all sold in Europe, but in the US we only get the Evora. So I'm really excited to see what the Emira can do and what that brings to the table, because that just seems like furthering along the recipe from this Evora, and I'm really excited to see that. I think this car will age really well. I think this is one of those cars that people would look at one day and say, it's a manual, mid-engine, lightweight, good power, Like, it's all there. It has all the winning winning ingredients for a good super sports car. And so honestly, that's the best way I can sum up this car. I think it's a winning formula that I really, really wish more people would try. And with that, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. This has been a fantastic time with the Evora GT, and I'm really excited to see other supercars in this space. I want to see how this space develops. But until then, please make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave any ideas in the comments of videos you'd like to see, cars you'd like us to review, because we're testing all of them. So until then, I'll see you soon.